Welcome to part 11 of the Ultimate Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore dark and fascinating mysteries. In this series, we deep dive unsolved mysteries, including true crime, mysterious disappearances, myths and legends, strange events, internet mysteries, and more. The Disappearance of Antoinette Calladito. On April 6, 1986, the disappearance of Antoinette Calladito, a 9-year-old girl from Gallup, New Mexico, sent shockwaves through her community and beyond. Born on December 25, 1976, Antoinette, described by everyone who knew her as a smart, happy child, vanished from her family's home under mysterious circumstances. On the night of April 5, 1986, Penny Calladito had been out with her friends at a bar, while her 3 daughters, including Antoinette, were at home with a babysitter. Penny arrived home around midnight and sent the babysitter home. It isn't clear to me from my research whether anyone specifically checked on Antoinette at this point. On the morning of April 6, 1986, Penny noticed that Antoinette was not in her bed. The police were notified immediately. The case of Antoinette's disappearance is marked by delayed police action, conflicting accounts, and a haunting phone call. Initially, police did not search the Calladito home until 4 days after the child went missing. From my research, it's unclear to me why there was such a delay in searching the Calladito residence. Suspiciously, Penny mentioned an individual named Emmanuel, who had given Antoinette flowers before her disappearance. However, she only did so after being prompted by a family member during the police investigation. Additionally, a man named Roger reported attempting to check on Penny early in the morning on April 6, 1986. According to his account, he knocked on the door and on a window around 3:30 a.m. Roger and Penny had gotten into an argument at the bar, and apparently he wanted to check on her. There was no answer when Roger knocked, and his account was corroborated by a neighbor. The significance of the Roger incident is unclear. A significant development occurred 1 year later with a distressing phone call from a girl claiming to be Antoinette, abruptly ended by an adult's shout and a scuffle. Penny believed the caller to be her daughter but did not recognize the adult voice. 5 years after the event, Wendy, one of Antoinette's sisters, disclosed witnessing her sister's abduction by 2 men after responding to a knock at the door, attributing her silence at the time to fear. Penny's account evolved over time, ultimately cryptically admitting to a potential involvement in her daughter's abduction in 1994, suggesting a premeditated plan with Emmanuel. Despite her confession and the FBI's belief in her involvement, Penny was never charged. Her motive for agreeing to this apparent plan is unknown. Further, whether such a plan even existed remains functionally unknown as well. By 1994, Penny was suffering severely from the effects of drug and alcohol addiction, conditions which would claim her life in 1999. Given that she was never charged, despite this apparent confession, it may not be useful to take this confession at face value. Multiple sightings of Antoinette Calladito were reported after her disappearance, with witnesses in different locations claiming to have seen a girl matching her description. In San Antonio, a witness reported seeing a girl resembling Antoinette with a blonde woman. At a Thriftway gas station in El Paso, Texas, another witness heard a child screams for help from a passing brown truck. Years later, in Carson City, Nevada, a waitress encountered a teenager resembling Antoinette. This teenager appeared to be signaling for help through her actions and left a napkin message pleading for assistance. These reports, however, did not lead to any breaks in the investigation. Both of Antoinette's parents are now deceased, but her sisters still hold out hope that she is alive. The authorities believe that Antoinette is likely deceased. However, the investigation remains active and ongoing almost 40 years later. I've attached an age-progressed image of what Antoinette may look like today. In my view, there's still a faint hope that she's out there. Given that this investigation remains open and active, I strongly encourage anyone with any information or evidence related to this case to reach out to the Gallup Police Department. Carla Atkins and Vicky Stout. Shout out to Remy LeBeau 7258 for recommending this case. Remember to leave a comment below if there's a case you think should be featured on this series. On September 17, 1980, in Dover, Tennessee, the lives of two half-sisters, 14-year-old Carla Atkins and 16-year-old Vicky Stout, took a tragic turn. The siblings had embarked on a seemingly ordinary afternoon journey to a local store, but never returned home. Their disappearance sparked a mystery that has lingered for decades, unsolved and haunting. The day started like any other, with Carla and Vicky leaving their residence. Their destination was a nearby store known as the Furnace, where they intended to purchase some items. Witnesses last saw them in conversation with an unidentified man by a blue pickup truck along US 79 West, near their home, sparking theories and questions that remain unanswered. The community was plunged into despair when, on the afternoon of October 5, 1980, two hikers discovered the girls' bodies in a secluded area of the land between the lakes. The investigation revealed the brutal and tragic manner in which their lives were taken. They were both ended by means of a single shotgun blast to the head. Unfortunately, their bodies were too decomposed at the time of discovery to determine if they were subject to indecent acts. As such, if there was DNA evidence due to such an act, it was destroyed. Despite the clarity of their tragic end, the circumstances leading to their deaths, including the exact time, remain uncertain. The investigation has focused extensively upon the unknown man in the blue pickup truck. Descriptions of this individual and his vehicle were widely circulated, but no definitive connections were made, leaving his role in the events, whether as a suspect or a mere witness, an open question. The man has been described as white, 25 to 30 years old, of average build, sporting a suntan and dark brown hair. The pickup truck was described as light blue or sky blue. Unfortunately, it does not appear that the make and model was ever noted. Given his suntan and his vehicle, I would suggest that he may have been a blue-collar worker. That said, this evidence is circumstantial at best, as lots of people who are not blue-collar workers also own pickup trucks and have suntans, especially given the location. Throughout the years, the case has seen various calls for information, anniversaries marked by vigils, and attempts to keep the memory of Carla and Vicky alive in the hope of finding justice. Family members and the community have faced the agony of unanswered questions, clinging to the hope that new evidence or revelations could emerge, shedding light on this dark chapter of Dover's history. Unfortunately, however, it looks as though there have been no new developments in this case over the course of the last 40-plus years. Disappearance of Suzanne Lyall. Big thank you to patron Jeffer Metcalf for this suggestion. The disappearance of Suzanne Lyall on the evening of March 2, 1998, remains a haunting mystery that has intrigued investigators and the public for over 2 decades. Suzanne, a 19-year-old student at the State University of New York at Albany, vanished after getting off a bus at the university campus, following her shift at a nearby mall. Her disappearance triggered a massive investigation, which is still ongoing till this day. Suzanne was last confirmed to have boarded a bus from Crossgates Mall, where she worked, with intentions to return to her dormitory. A bus driver and a friend reported seeing her board and exit the bus, respectively, but she never made it back to her room. The following day, when Suzanne failed to contact her boyfriend or return to her dorm, her parents were alerted, marking the beginning of a perplexing case. Despite initial reluctance from campus police to escalate the matter, Suzanne's continued absence led to the involvement of the New York State Police. Importantly, the campus police were only willing to investigate once it became clear that Suzanne was missing multiple midterm exams. This, of course, wasted valuable investigative time, as the initial hours in investigation are key to the timely resolution of such crimes. The investigation into Suzanne's disappearance revealed several puzzling elements. Her bank card was used after her disappearance to withdraw money from an ATM, a transaction that hinted at someone with knowledge of her PIN. This possibly suggested someone close to her was involved. Despite extensive searches and the examination of hundreds of leads, no substantial evidence was uncovered to explain her disappearance. Investigators considered various theories, including the possibility that Suzanne may have been taken against her will. Speculation also arose about her relationship with her boyfriend, who was scrutinized by police but maintained his innocence. Her boyfriend had a confirmed alibi at the time of the disappearance. Despite this, according to the police, he has since refused to cooperate further with the investigation. However, I note that it's important to consider the context of his supposed refusal to cooperate with police. The boyfriend refused to be subjected to a polygraph test and would only agree to questioning with a lawyer present. In my view, I don't necessarily think that the boyfriend's requests ought to place any suspicion on him, given that he had provided a firm alibi, which was verified by the police. If the police had not confirmed his alibi with certainty, this situation would look much more suspicious. Given the high-profile nature of Suzanne's disappearance, numerous theories have surfaced to explain her disappearance. Investigators looked into Karen Louise Wilson's disappearance, a State University of New York Albany student missing since March 27, 1985, for potential links to Suzanne Lyall's case. Investigators found similarities between the cases, but no concrete evidence of any connection. Also, stay tuned, because Karen Louise Wilson's case will be discussed later in the video. Another theory revolves around the potential that Suzanne had a stalker. A co-worker reported Suzanne felt she was being stalked about a month before her disappearance, but Suzanne seemed unworried by this individual. According to this theory, the stalker is connected to her disappearance. However, there is no evidence whatsoever to support this explanation. In 2018, John Camp, a senior investigator speaking on behalf of the New York State Police, publicly indicated their quote-unquote belief is that she was a victim of homicide. I note that the wording of the statement indicates no concrete evidence whatsoever to indicate a homicide occurred, but rather a professional opinion based on cases such as this. Notably, in this same statement, John Camp enigmatically indicated that there's a possibility that she moved away. On a positive note, Suzanne's parents were not only extremely active in seeking answers in their daughter's case, they also made substantial progress towards improving the safety of individuals in a similar situation as Suzanne, thus likely saving untold lives. Following their daughter's disappearance, they successfully pushed for legislative changes in New York to improve campus safety, resulting in Suzanne's Law. This law mandates detailed plans for investigating crimes on campuses and swift reporting of missing persons cases. As you will recall, the campus police were extremely dismissive of Suzanne's disappearance. However, they didn't stop there. Their advocacy led to a federal change in 2003, which included a provision to increase the age limit for reporting missing persons to the National Crime Information Center to 21. This case is still being actively investigated by the New York State Police. If you have any evidence regarding the disappearance of Suzanne Lyall, please reach out to New York State Police. Hey everyone, Jimmy here, the YouTuber behind the Lazy Chill Zone channel. If you're enjoying my content, please do me a huge favor and hit like and subscribe and that sweet, sweet notification bell. My goal is to create the most expansive iceberg series in YouTube history, and I want you along for the ride. Also, consider signing up for a YouTube membership, joining the Patreon, and joining the Discord. The links to all three are in the description of this video. The Boroboroton, the possessed sleeping mat. The Boroboroton is a unique and intriguing creature from Japanese folklore, known as a Tsukumogami yokai. This term refers to objects that have acquired a spirit after reaching a significant age, usually 100 years, turning them into living entities with supernatural powers. The Boroboroton, in particular, is a tattered sleeping mat that has come to life, embodying the essence of something once mundane, now endowed with eerie capabilities. Appearing primarily at night, the Boroboroton is not just any old mat. It rises into the air, defying gravity with its ability to levitate. What makes the Boroboroton especially notable is its association with emotions such as extreme loneliness and desolation, suggesting a deeper narrative behind its existence. These feelings are thought to animate the Boroboroton, giving it a longing for human touch and interaction, which, according to legends, can lead to fatal encounters for those who come into contact with it. The Boroboroton does not always intend to engage in a fatal interaction with its victim. Rather, some of them just long for the days when they were cuddled, leading to a sort of quote-unquote hug of death. The origins of the Boroboroton can be traced back to traditional Japanese beliefs regarding objects and their potential to acquire life and spirit. This yokai is an excellent example of Tsukumogami, illustrating the animistic aspect of Japanese religion, where even the most ordinary items can become entities with their own desires and intentions. For reference, if you've watched the previous parts in this series, you'll recall that swords are thought to have good or evil spirits, with the Muramasa being examples of evil blades. Conversely, the Masamune are examples of righteous swords with good spirits. Powers associated with the Boroboroton include not only its unnerving levitation, but also its ability to induce mental sedation. This makes its victims feel an overwhelming sense of comfort and sleepiness, rendering them vulnerable to its embrace. Yokai like the Boroboroton are still widely believed to exist in Japan. I was able to find a poll from 2013 indicating 57.4% of individuals aged 20 to 59 possess some beliefs in supernatural entities such as ghosts or yokai. That said, in terms of specific belief in the Boroboroton, I've had less luck finding sources. In my view, the tale of the Boroboroton can be interpreted, at the very least, as a warning of the consequences of neglecting and disregarding what once provided comfort, rest, and warmth. However, I believe there may be more to this deceptively simple tale. Japanese civilization has been influenced throughout by Confucian thought. As you may or may not be aware, taking care of one's parents as they age is perhaps the strongest duty one has in the Confucian social order. I hypothesize that the Boroboroton thus may serve as an allegory for the importance of caring for one's parents as they age. If the sleeping mat, once a source of comfort and rest, is taken care of and treated properly, it never transforms into a Boroboroton. In this allegory, the Boroboroton's actions, while malevolent, are a call for recognition and acknowledgement of the elderly's needs, desires, and the respect they deserve. That said, sometimes an old sleeping mat is just an old sleeping mat. Let me know what you think of this theory on this fascinating entity in the comments. Pitt's Lake Lost Gold Mine. The legend of Pitt Lake's lost gold mine has captivated the imagination of treasure hunters and adventure seekers for over a century. Nestled in the rugged wilderness of British Columbia, Canada, this gold mine allegedly offers great fortune for the bold. At the heart of the legend is the story of a prospector named Wilbur Armstrong, who, in the early 1900s, embarked on expeditions to find the legendary treasure within 20 miles of the head of Pitt Lake. Accounts from that era tell of another prospector, Walter Jackson, also known as Walter Shotwell in some versions of the story, who purportedly discovered a valley where the bedrock was visibly rich with gold. Before his death, Jackson sent a letter detailing the location of his find, describing a cache of gold buried under a tent-shaped rock, overseen by 3 mountain peaks. This narrative, while fascinating, is clouded by the absence of concrete evidence and the varying names and details that emerge in different retellings. The enigmatic Slumac, a Katzie First Nation man, is another pivotal figure in this saga. Convicted for a slaying in the late 19th century, Slumac is rumored to have discovered a rich gold mine whose location died with him. His story has been embellished over time, transforming him into a character shrouded in mystery and linked to the lost gold through hearsay and speculation rather than hard evidence. In-depth analyses have attempted to separate fact from fiction, exploring the origins and developments of the Pitt Lake gold mine legend. Most historians who have examined the case believe it to be a compilation of different stories of a lost gold mine in the same region. Importantly, geologists have confirmed that the area in question is likely not suitable for the type of gold mine that's associated with this tale. Ultimately, my view on this lost gold mine, unlike the other lost gold mines that we've covered, is that this lost gold mine is almost certainly fictional. There's simply too many differing accounts and no real consistency between the narratives. Further, the expert evidence in the form of the geologist confirms to me that the sort of mine that the legend refers to probably can't exist in the region anyway. My view on this one is largely or almost entirely in line with the mainstream historical consensus. That said, despite my view on the Pitt's Lake Lost Gold Mine, there are numerous people who are still out searching for it. The lost trading port of Abascoon. The lost trading city of Abascoon was once a bustling medieval port on the Caspian Sea. The exact location of the city is unknown, but it has been speculated to have been on an island near the shore of the Caspian Sea. This city, thriving in an era marked by extensive trade networks that spanned continents, served as a pivotal maritime hub on the Silk Road. Its strategic location facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures, making it a linchpin in the economic and social dynamics of the region. The city is reported to have boasted a strong brick citadel. The wealth of the city was so widely known that Vikings proceeded down the Volga River to raid Abascoon multiple times. An initial exploratory raid occurred in the late 9th century AD, with a further raid around 910, followed by a large Viking attack on the city in 913. Later it provided refuge to Muhammad II, the Shah of the Khwarezmian Empire. Muhammad was fleeing advancing Mongol forces, and, as a quick aside, Genghis Khan was, to put it mildly, not a fan of Muhammad II. Importantly, I note that this was the last known instance where the city is confirmed to have existed. A local legend recorded around the 14th century indicates that the city was sunken by changing water levels in the Caspian Sea. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to locate any data to either confirm or deny this assertion. My theory is that Abascoon was razed to the ground by Mongol forces. The following facts are known. Genghis Khan had a personal hatred of Muhammad II. The Mongols were enraged by walled cities. And further, people who provided aid and comfort to enemies of the Mongols were annihilated. Further, the last confirmed mention of the trading city is its decision to provide aid and comfort to Muhammad II. Further yet, Abascoon was known for its citadel, a highly fortified area of the city to protect its wealth from raiders such as the Vikings or steppe nomads. Given that Abiskun provided aid to Muhammad II, along with all the other factors mentioned, I hypothesize that the Mongol force razed the city to the ground and ended all the inhabitants. Further, this explains why there's no evidence of a sunken city in the Caspian Sea. My hypothesis is entirely based on circumstantial evidence, but in my view, the circumstantial evidence is fairly strong in this instance. The disappearance of Sarah McDiarmid. In July 1990, Sarah McDiarmid, a 23-year-old Scottish Australian, vanished without a trace. She was last seen leaving Cananook railway station in Melbourne, Victoria, after a tennis game with friends sparked a prolonged and unresolved investigation. Witnesses saw her heading towards the dimly lit car park, and evidence suggested a violent encounter near her vehicle, marked by bloodstains, a dropped lighter, and drag marks. Adding to the mystery, an ear witness claimed to hear a woman yelling, "Give me my keys!" Despite extensive efforts involving over hundreds of police officers and a 21-day search spanning air, sea, and land, no trace of her was found. Initial investigations pointed towards foul play, a conclusion supported by an inquest in 2006, which, however, could not clarify the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Over the years, the reward for information leading to a resolution increased to $1 million, reflecting the case's complexity and the community's desperation for closure. Speculation connected Australian serial killers, including Paul Denner and Bandely Debs, to her case, though Denner explicitly denied involvement. Further, Debs was considered a person of interest based solely on police practices of linking unsolved cases to known serial offenders active in the area. These connections to serial slayers, however, remain speculative without concrete evidence to confirm their involvement. In the aftermath, Sarah's family sought to keep her memory alive and support others in similar situations through initiatives, including launching a website. This website, notalone.com.au, is no longer online, but can still be accessed through the Internet Archive. Hopefully, for the sake of Sarah's family, this case can be resolved, and they can finally have the closure they deserve. Loys Ape. The tale of Loys Ape begins in the early 20th century with François Deloy, a Swiss geologist, during his expedition in search of oil in the remote jungles between Venezuela and Colombia. This region, known for its dense forests and challenging terrain, became the backdrop for one of the most compelling and enduring stories in cryptozoology. Deloy's encounter with a peculiar primate, which resulted in a photograph that would stir the scientific community and public imagination for decades, took place around 1920. The creature, reportedly encountered near the Tara River, exhibited unusual characteristics for New World monkeys. Notably, its bipedal stance and the absence of a tail, attributes that defy the common traits of known species in the region. The primate was said to stand approximately 4 feet 5 inches tall, further complicating its classification within the known primates of the region. The story gained significant attention when Georges Montandon, a French anthropologist and a friend of Deloy's, stumbled upon the photograph. Montandon, intrigued by the creature's human-like appearance and the possibility of it being a previously undiscovered species, gave it a scientific name. He proposed it as the only known ape of the Americas, potentially a missing link in human evolution. This claim, however, was met with skepticism and controversy. Skepticism which stemmed from the lack of additional physical evidence and the peculiar circumstances surrounding the photograph's background and presentation. Critics and skeptics have raised questions about the veracity of Deloy's account and the photograph's authenticity. Some suggest the primate could be a misidentified or manipulated specimen of a known species, such as a spider monkey. In favor of this hypothesis, skeptics have noted characteristics like the forward-facing nostrils and the absence of a tail as possible evidence of tampering. This skepticism is compounded by the involvement of Montandon, whose theories on human evolution and science generally have been completely discredited. Montandon's interest in the ape was seen by some as an attempt to support his controversial theories, casting further doubt on the legitimacy of the discovery. Montandon presented his case to the French Academy of Sciences, claiming the ape to be a quote-unquote American chimpanzee. Based on my research, I firmly believe the story of Loys Ape is a hoax, a conclusion I've reached after scrutinizing the details and context of its discovery. First, the only evidence we have is a single photograph, which in itself is highly suspicious. The creature in the image appears too similar to a known species, the spider monkey, with peculiarities like its posture and lack of a tail seeming artificially manipulated. Further, the involvement of Montandon, a figure with controversial views trying to push a dubious theory of human evolution, adds another layer of doubt. His eagerness to classify the ape as a new species without solid evidence or peer validation underscores the motive behind the hoax. He wanted to use the photograph to support his own theories, which would have brought him significant accolades in the scientific community if true. Anyway, that said, something in the back of my mind finds the photograph of this quote-unquote ape extremely disconcerting. William Unek. William Unek was a figure whose life took a dark turn, culminating in two separate tragic events that shook the communities he targeted. Born around 1929, he was a police constable prior to turning to profound evil. In 1954, in the Belgian Congo, Unek was responsible for the loss of 21 lives in a horrific spree. The details of this event are scant, but it was reported that he used an axe, chopping at his victims indiscriminately. The reasons behind this act remain unclear, with no motive fully ascertained. After this spree, Unek fled, eventually making his way to Tanganyika, modern Tanzania, blending into a new environment under a false identity. 3 years later, in early 1957, Unek initiated another spree in the area of Malampaka, using a stolen police rifle among other weapons. This time, his actions resulted in the deaths of 36 individuals, including men, women, and children. The brutality of these acts was unimaginable, with Unek employing a range of methods to carry out his attacks, including shooting, stabbing, burning, and strangling. Among the victims was reportedly his own wife, whom he killed before setting their home on fire. The aftermath of the second spree led to Tanganyika's largest manhunt at the time, involving local tribesmen, police, and the King's African Rifles. Despite the use of dogs and aircraft in the search, Unek evaded capture for 9 days. He was eventually located due to the bravery of a local resident. Unek showed up at the home of Iyumbu Ben Ikumbu, who distracted Unek with food, drink, and conversation, while his wife was sent to notify the police. Upon their arrival, a confrontation ensued, and Unek was mortally wounded. Ikumbu, recognized for his bravery, received a large financial reward and received the British Empire Medal for meritorious service in light of his actions and the lives he undoubtedly saved. The cause of William Unek's 2 sprees is entirely unknown, and unfortunately the case is poorly documented. Further, it's unclear how many victims Unek may have had in total, given the 3 years between his 2 rampages. And yes, before you leave a comment, this is unfortunately the best and only photograph of Unek available. Gloomy Sunday. Gloomy Sunday, also known euphemistically as the Hungarian self-ending song, is a tune with an urban legend attached. Composed in 1933 by the Hungarian pianist and composer Rezo Saris, It's a melody that has become synonymous with sorrow and despair. Despite its haunting beauty, it's most famous for the dark cloud of urban legends that surround it, suggesting that the song is linked to numerous untimely departures from life. The legend holds that Gloomy Sunday was connected to a significant number of unfortunate events in Hungary and beyond. In Vienna, Berlin, New York, and London, tales emerged of individuals who, overwhelmed by the song's melancholic melody and lyrics, chose to cease living. These stories contributed to the song's notoriety, leading to supposed bans by authorities in an attempt to curb its perceived negative influence. The most notable of these was the BBC's decision to prohibit the song's broadcast, deeming it too upsetting for the public during World War II. This restriction technically remained in place until 2002. However, I personally have my doubts as to whether it was followed until that time. The song's composer's life has only enhanced the tragic allure of this song. In 1968, he ceased existing due to his own hand, a final act that seemed to seal the song's legacy as one intertwined with tragedy. While the urban legend tries very hard to associate Gloomy Sunday with Rezo's self-ending, digging into his biography leads to a much sadder conclusion. He and his family were persecuted by the Nazis during World War II for their Jewish heritage. While Rezo was thankfully able to survive forced labor, many of his close family members sadly perished. This suggests a strong alternate candidate for the act he committed, rather than the effects of Gloomy Sunday. Despite the grim lore surrounding it, Gloomy Sunday has been recorded by numerous artists over the years. Perhaps the most haunting rendition of the song, likely familiar to many viewers, is Billie Holiday's extremely melancholic version. All of that said, you're probably expecting me to dismiss this urban legend outright, but I'm not going to. The belief in Gloomy Sunday's negative effects could itself be harmful, a phenomenon known as the nocebo effect, where negative expectations lead to worse outcomes. This song, shrouded in urban legends of despair and misfortune, illustrates how collective belief can amplify a work's perceived impact. When people are convinced that engaging with this song leads to distress, they might experience heightened emotional turmoil merely by association, not the content itself. Further, this is exacerbated by the content itself being deeply melancholic. The Bain family slayings. This case was recommended by subscriber Boogedy. On June 20th, 1994, a disturbing event unfolded in Dunedin, New Zealand, that captured the nation's attention and sparked debates around justice and the legal system. Early in the morning, after completing his paper run, 22-year-old David Bain reported the tragic loss of his family. Upon arrival, authorities discovered 5 members of the Bain family had succumbed to gunshot wounds. Parents Robin, 58, and Margaret, 50, and their children Arawa, 19, Laniet, 18, and Stephen, 14. A cryptic message left on the family's computer hinted at a deeper story, leading to David's arrest 4 days later. This message said, "Sorry, you are the only one who deserved to stay." In what I can only describe as an absolutely ludicrous turn of events, 2 weeks after the slayings, the house where the slayings occurred was burnt down. And why, you ask, was this house burnt down? Well, because other members of the family requested that the house be burnt down. Problematically, the burnt down house contained the bloody footprints of the perpetrator. For reasons that are entirely unclear to me, these were not preserved. The initial investigation and subsequent trial navigated through a complex web of familial dynamics, allegations, and evidence. The prosecution argued that David executed his family members before fabricating a self-ending scene for his father, Robin. In contrast, the defense presented a scenario where Robin was the perpetrator, driven to despair by internal family issues, ultimately leading to the tragic events. The conviction of David Bain in 1995, followed by years of appeals, brought to light the intricate and often fraught relationship between legal interpretations and the quest for truth. The involvement of Joe Karam, a former rugby pro turned advocate, was pivotal in challenging the original convictions and spearheading a campaign for a retrial. Karam's unwavering support and the uncovering of new evidence led to the Privy Council's decision to quash the convictions, citing a, quote, substantial miscarriage of justice. In 2009, a retrial was conducted, introducing new arguments and evidence regarding Robin Bain's potential motives and mental state. The defense suggested Robin was the true culprit, motivated by a desire to conceal his illicit relationship with his daughter Laniette. After months of deliberation, David Bain was acquitted of all charges, a verdict that left the community and the nation divided. Despite his acquittal, the ordeal left David struggling to reintegrate into society, grappling with the stigma of his initial conviction and the years lost behind bars. Presently, this case technically remains unsolved. However, there are no active suspects in the case at present, nor are there any persons of interest. Given the evidence at the retrial, I think we can all draw the same conclusion as to the perpetrator of this heinous act. The death of Bruiser Brody. The tragic event that led to the demise of Frank Donald Goodish, famously known as Bruiser Brody, remains one of professional wrestling's darkest moments. On July 17, 1988, in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, Brody's life came to an untimely end under circumstances that would stir controversy and unanswered questions for decades to come. The conflict that led to Brody's demise began in the locker room of a wrestling event. Brody was asked by fellow wrestler Jose Gonzalez, known in the ring as Invader One, to discuss business in the shower area away from the rest of the locker room. This meeting turned fatal when Gonzalez inflicted severe injuries on Brody. Despite the immediate chaos and the efforts of fellow wrestlers to get medical help, Brody succumbed to his injuries. The police investigation and subsequent trial of Jose Gonzalez were marred by a lack of cooperation from witnesses and logistical mishaps. One of the biggest quote-unquote logistical mishaps was the fact that the killing blade was never recovered. Key witnesses, including wrestlers who were present at the scene, received subpoenas too late, rendering their evidence moot, as the jury had already reached a verdict. Gonzalez was acquitted of all charges, with the defense claiming he acted in self-defense. This outcome left many within the wrestling community and Brody's family seeking justice that seemed forever out of reach. The story of Bruiser Brody's life and the circumstances of his death have been recounted in various wrestling documentaries and articles. Yet despite the passage of time, the complete truth of what happened in the locker room remains elusive. I anticipate that we will never have the truth of what happened in the locker room that fateful day. Jose Gonzalez was acquitted of the slaying and found to have acted in self-defense by a jury. Simply put, he has no incentive to ever say anything further, as whatever he says could be of no benefit to him and could only work against him. Further, Gonzalez continued to wrestle and enjoy a successful career in the Puerto Rican wrestling scene. Astonishingly, Jose Gonzalez only retired from wrestling in 2022 at the age of 74. The Ego Pogo. The Ego Pogo, a mysterious lake cryptid said to inhabit Lake Simcoe in Ontario, Canada, has been a subject of folklore and curiosity for almost 2 centuries. Known by several names, including Kempenfelt Kelly and Beaverton Bessie, this legendary lake monster has captivated imaginations and sparked debates about its existence and origins. The Ego Pogo is often described as a large, serpentine creature with distinctive features that set it apart from other cryptids. It has been likened to a dog-faced animal, with comparisons made to seals in terms of its appearance and behavior. Eyewitness accounts over the years have painted a picture of a creature that is both elusive and intriguing, with sightings suggesting a presence that defies conventional explanation. The first recorded sighting dates back to 1823, with notable instances reported throughout the 20th century, including a 1991 video recording that further fueled speculation and interest. Notably, the image you're looking at on screen now is a still from a now-lost video of the incident. Several theories have been proposed to explain the Igopogo phenomenon. One popular theory suggests that the creature could be a relict population of an unknown species of aquatic animal, possibly related to seals. This theory is supported by the creature's seal-like characteristics described in various sightings. Another theory posits that the Igopogo might be a case of misidentification, with observers mistaking logs, waves, or known animals for a creature. Further, for group sightings, there's always the possibility of mass psychogenic illness type events, wherein multiple people experience what is in essence the same hallucination. Some skeptics completely deny the existence of the possibility of the creature and question whether the alleged sighting in 1823 actually occurred. These skeptics appear to be of the school of thought that would suggest that lake monsters became much more popular after Nessie mania in the 1930s. And just a quick reminder that if you enjoy my content, remember to like and subscribe. Your likes and subscriptions make it possible for me to devote virtually all of my free time to content creation. Seriously, thanks everyone. I couldn't do this without you. Olaf Palm. Here's a suggestion that comes from subscriber Hachi Seiko. Thanks for the suggestion. On the evening of February 28, 1986, an event shocked Sweden and the world. Olaf Palm, the Prime Minister of Sweden, was walking home with his wife Elizabeth from the Grand Cinema in central Stockholm when his life was abruptly ended. The absence of bodyguards, a choice that reflected Palm's desire to live as ordinarily as possible despite his high office, left the couple vulnerable. The immediate aftermath saw a swift but ultimately futile effort to save him, with emergency services arriving on the scene within minutes. Despite these efforts, Palm was pronounced dead shortly after midnight on March 1, 1986. Christer Pettersson, a convicted felon and petty criminal, who had previously slain an individual during a street fight in 1970, was promptly arrested and charged with the slaying. Pettersson, denying involvement, claimed to have appreciated Palm's politics and stated he was not in central Stockholm when the incident occurred. Nevertheless, Elizabeth Palm's identification and acquaintances' claims placed him near the crime scene, resulting in his 1989 life sentence conviction. However, this was overturned months later due to evidentiary insufficiency and doubts about Elizabeth's identification. Following his release, Pettersson received compensation for his wrongful ordeal and attempted to turn the conviction into a career. After his release, he began engaging in media interviews where he flirted with confessions to the crime. These were not taken seriously, often dismissed as attempts to profit from media attention. Another suspect in the matter was Victor Gunnarsson, who was connected to right-wing extremist organizations. Due to claims of involvement and claimed harassment, he moved to the United States, where he was subsequently slain in 1993 in an unrelated incident. According to another theory, the South African government hired professionals to dispense with Olaf over his strong anti-apartheid stance. Another theory, which in my research appears to be considered to be highly controversial in Sweden, involves a man named Stig Engström, better known as the Skandia Man. In 2018, a journalist proposed that Stig Engström, known as the Skandia Man, was the likely assailant in Olaf Palm's case. This was based on Engstrom's dislike for Palm, matching witness descriptions and Engstrom's apparent suspicious activities and media behavior post-event. Despite Engstrom's death in 2000, this theory gained attention and was later acknowledged by the Swedish Prosecution Authority in 2020. They stated that he had long been a suspect, but that he was never charged due to the likely inability to obtain a conviction. Further, I imagine one wrongful conviction in relation to the matter was already humiliating enough for the Swedish authorities. Also, as an aside, these are only a few of the theories related to this slaying. I suspect at this point the evidence has been too muddied for any conclusive resolution to the case to ever be expected. Jerusalem Syndrome. Jerusalem Syndrome is a psychological phenomenon that strikes some individuals when they visit the ancient city of Jerusalem. This condition, unique due to its geographical specificity, manifests through intense religious experiences or delusions, often leading the affected person to believe they are figures from biblical narratives. It's a subject of interest for both psychologists and theologians, as it sits at the crossroads of mental health, religion, and the impact of historically significant locations on human consciousness. The syndrome typically unfolds in a few stages. Initially, the visitor might exhibit an overwhelming desire to detach from their tour group or companions to explore Jerusalem alone. Following this, they may engage in ritualistic acts, such as donning white robes made from hotel bed linens. They've also been known to preach in public spaces and conduct impromptu and unwanted quote-unquote baptisms, amongst other activities. In many cases, these actions are out of character for the individuals experiencing them and can lead to their hospitalization. Interestingly, the syndrome doesn't discriminate by religion. While it's more commonly reported among Christians, cases have been observed across various faiths. Experts theorize that the root causes of Jerusalem syndrome are multifaceted, blending the psychological impact of visiting a city so deeply embedded in human history and religion with pre-existing mental health conditions or susceptibilities. The syndrome can affect those with no history of mental illness, suggesting that the city's intense spiritual significance and the immersive experience of walking in the same spaces as historical religious figures can trigger profound psychological reactions. For some, the overwhelming realization of being in a place they've only read or heard about in religious texts can blur the lines between past and present, myth and reality. However, not all experts agree on a single cause. Some suggest that Jerusalem syndrome is a manifestation of a pre-existing psychiatric condition that is triggered or exacerbated by the visit to Jerusalem. In these cases, the city acts as a catalyst rather than the root cause, bringing underlying issues to the surface. Despite its dramatic presentation, Jerusalem syndrome is generally temporary. Affected individuals typically return to their normal state of mind once they leave Jerusalem, often with little to no memory of their actions while under the influence of the syndrome. This transient nature raises questions about the interplay between place, belief, and mental health, suggesting a profound yet not fully understood impact of sacred spaces on the human psyche. In my view, being in Jerusalem for the faithful has the significant potential to cause a very real psychologically based warp in reality. Walking through the city could in essence make a sufferer of Jerusalem syndrome feel like they are live-action role-playing a scene from the Bible. I note that sufferers from Jerusalem syndrome are universally on trips and almost always have some sort of disruption to their routine and sleep schedules. Disruption to sleep schedules has often been linked to the triggering of mental health issues. The disappearance of Karen Louise Wilson. On March 27, 1985, Karen Louise Wilson, a 22-year-old political science major at the State University of New York at Albany, vanished under mysterious circumstances. Karen was last seen in Colony, New York, after visiting a local shopping mall where she purchased t-shirts in preparation for a spring break trip to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Despite having an appointment at the tanning hut that evening, she did not attend. Authorities believe Karen was headed back to the campus when she was possibly abducted near the entrance to Interstate 90 westbound and the Northway. The area was poorly lit and sparsely trafficked, making it feasible for an abduction to occur unnoticed. A sketch of an unidentified man seen in the vicinity around the time Karen disappeared was released, but he has never been identified or located. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no conclusive evidence has emerged regarding Karen's whereabouts post-disappearance. Speculations that she might have continued her travel plans to Florida were investigated, but ultimately led nowhere. Police are virtually certain she never left New York State. Like Suzanne Lyall's case, no meaningful leads have ever been generated in this case. Again, while it has been speculated that there may be a connection between the two cases, this is pure conjecture. The Krasu. The Krasu is a ghost deeply entrenched in Southeast Asian folklore, particularly in Thailand. This entity is visualized as a woman's head floating independently, with her viscera and internal organs dangling from her neck, creating a haunting nocturnal image. The Krasu preys on animals and, disturbingly, pregnant women and their newborns, consuming raw flesh and blood to satisfy its endless hunger. This spectral figure is said to be active at night. Origins of the Krasu are shrouded in folklore and vary across regions, with stories suggesting it could be a cursed individual who engaged in wrongful deeds in a previous life. Another tale recounts a princess involved in a tragic tale of betrayal and magic gone awry, leading to her transformation into the Krasu as a form of punishment or as a result of a failed spell. The curse is also believed to pass through generations, particularly among women involved in witchcraft or those who consume contaminated food or drink. The Krasu possesses notable powers, including the ability to float and the gruesome use of a long tongue to consume its victim's essence, often leading to the belief that it causes diseases or misfortunes. To protect against the Krasu, communities employ measures such as surrounding homes with thorny branches or burying placentas deep enough to be unreachable. From my research, Krasu sightings appear to be quite common, with the latest article I could find on a sighting indicating a 16-year-old Thai girl spotted a Krasu in January 2024. The disappearance of Paul Edwin Overby. In May 2014, Paul Edwin Overby Jr., an American author, disappeared in Afghanistan. Overby ventured into the perilous terrain of Khost Province, Afghanistan. His mission was ambitious: to conduct research for a book that aimed to shed light on the complexities of the Afghan conflict. On May 17, 2014, Overby was last seen as he prepared to cross into Waziristan, a region within Pakistan's federally administered tribal areas, known for its lawlessness and as a haven for militants. He intended to interview Sirajuddin Haqqani, a key figure in the Haqqani network, to gain insights into the group's perspectives and motivations. This undertaking was fraught with risks, as the area was notorious for its hostility towards foreigners and the presence of insurgent groups. The news of Overby's disappearance remained under wraps until January 2017, when his wife, Jane Larson, publicly disclosed his identity and the circumstances surrounding his vanishing. This delay in making his situation public was aimed at safeguarding potential negotiations for his return. The FBI and other international agencies have since been involved in efforts to locate Overby. While Larson, his wife, believes that the Taliban were involved in his vanishing, the Taliban has explicitly denied a role in Overby's disappearance. In my view, while the Taliban may have been involved, No evidence which has been made public has indicated as such. The region where he disappeared is known for its lawlessness, and he could have been captured by any number of groups or individuals. On May 8, 2018, the FBI offered a $1 million reward for information leading to his rescue, indicating that there may be evidence that he is alive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Remember, it's your subscriptions that can make this the most extensive iceberg series ever. Also, check out the Patreon, my YouTube membership, and the Discord. Links are in the description. Shout out to my patrons Noah Schubert, Kazak Cutie, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, and Jeffer Metcalf. Until next time, stay safe and healthy. Peace out, everyone.